More with less is the unofficial mantra of chain pharmacies. Chains have been siphoning away technician help and pharmacist overlap for years. The chains justify these practices by believing that pharmacists have plenty of capacity to meet all the needs of the customers. Let's examine this belief in more detail. In this simulation pharmacy, the pharmacist is working a 12-hour shift at a large chain store with a drive-through. The pharmacy volume is 350 prescriptions on a weekday. The pharmacy has the typical chain pharmacy staffing level. For each core pharmacist task, we will estimate how often each task is performed in a 12-hour shift and how many minutes it takes to complete each task. Each task is then deducted from the pharmacist's capacity. Our first task is to access and read any communications sent to the pharmacy by the chain's headquarters. Most pharmacists check this more than once a day, but for this simulation, the pharmacists check this only once. The estimated time to complete this task is about 10 minutes. Sometimes the pharmacist has to type in prescriptions. This could be due to errors found on the data entry or if the pharmacy is behind. Let's assume a pharmacist enters 30 prescriptions during their shift. This reduces the pharmacist's capacity by 15 minutes. The pharmacist must check the accuracy of each prescription typed in. Each review of a single prescription on average takes about 30 seconds each. In our example pharmacy, the pharmacist spends 175 minutes doing data review. When you factor in prescription updates due to manufacturer changes, the total time checking is 195 minutes. Another core task that a pharmacist performs is drug utilization reviews. Assuming 40% of the prescriptions entered requires a DUR, and assuming a pharmacist takes 15 seconds to read, evaluate, and take action on major DURs, 35 minutes of the pharmacist's capacity is used. While pharmacy technicians primarily count and label prescriptions, sometimes the pharmacist performs this task. Assuming the pharmacist fills 15 prescriptions and it takes on average 60 seconds to fill one prescription, this reduces the pharmacist's capacity by 15 minutes. The pharmacist has to check to see if the right medication was filled, check the prescription labeling, and bag each prescription. At 350 prescriptions per day, and assuming it takes 30 seconds to complete, product review takes 175 minutes to complete. Patients who shopping in the store ask the pharmacist questions about OTCs, their prescriptions, and ask for medical advice. In addition, the pharmacist counsels patients on their prescriptions. In states that have mandatory consultation, this task significantly reduces the pharmacist's capacity. For our pharmacy in this simulation, we will use a pharmacy that is not located in a mandatory consultation state. Assuming the pharmacist has 40 consultations or questions during their 12-hour shift, and it takes on average 2 minutes for each question or consultation, 80 minutes of the pharmacist's capacity is reduced. The pharmacist has to take new phone prescriptions from prescribers. In addition, pharmacists also must call prescribers when a prescription clarification is needed. This reduces the pharmacist's capacity by 60 minutes, assuming it takes the pharmacist 2.5 minutes to complete each call, and the pharmacist has to field an average of 20 calls during their 12-hour shift. Patients call to ask to speak to the pharmacist. The patient could be calling about their prescription price, insurance, request a refill, or ask clinical-type questions. Also, the pharmacist sometimes needs to contact a patient about a prescription issue as well. Assuming the pharmacist receives or places 30 of these types of calls, it can reduce the pharmacist's capacity by 60 minutes. Insurance rejects consumes a lot of the pharmacist and technician's time. PBMs are masters of wasting your time with endless messages at the beginning of each call. On average, a pharmacist spends an average 30 minutes fixing insurance rejects and calling PBMs. Pharmacists have to transfer prescriptions to a different pharmacy when requested. Assuming it takes 4 minutes to complete each transfer, and on average, a pharmacist transfers 5 prescriptions on each 12-hour shift, Transfers reduce the pharmacist's capacity by 20 minutes. A pharmacist must manage the pharmacy's inventory. The pharmacist must check in controlled substances, place orders, and solve inventory issues for patients. Let's assume that the pharmacist has to perform 5 inventory management tasks in their 12-hour shift. This reduces the pharmacist's capacity by 15 minutes. As you can see, there is practically no pharmacist capacity left performing traditional core tasks. But we haven't factored in a 30-minute break, immunizations, cashiering, and adherence patient call list. Subtract these from the portal, and the pharmacist is now overutilized by 28%. The tasks and time assumptions presented in this simulation are conservative and are based on a relatively predictable and smooth day. As all retail pharmacist knows, each day brings different challenges. For example, a technician call-off. The amount of work the pharmacy has to complete is redistributed to all pharmacy team members, including the pharmacist. Therefore, the pharmacist has to answer more patient incoming calls, complete more prescription data entries, fill more prescriptions, more cashiering, and more insurance reject troubleshooting. One technician call-off increases the pharmacist's overutilization by at least 7%. Being overutilized, the pharmacist must compensate in order to complete all prescriptions and tasks during their 12-hour shift. Factoring out mental and physical fatigue the pharmacist experiences during their 12-hour shift, the pharmacist must either hurry the completion of their tasks, multitask, or leave work for the next day. Recently, CVS has been in the news concerning some of their stores running 8 days behind in filling prescriptions. Looking at our simulation pharmacy, it is not hard to see why this is happening. Chains will continue to overutilize their pharmacists unless there is organized opposition to their practices. The Retail Pharmacist Association will be using simulations like the one presented in this video to persuade state legislators and boards of pharmacy that action must be taken to protect patients. But RPhA cannot do this without support from pharmacists and technicians. Our core mission is to positively change the working conditions for pharmacists and technicians working at chain pharmacies. Please visit www.rpha.us to join us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.